Welcome, folks, to another episode of Wicked Problems. Joining me today as we bound forth into another EV episode is Tom Hurst from FastNed. FastNed are a company focused on rapid and ultra-rapid charging across Europe, present in 9 countries. They have over 2,000 chargers and are active in more than 340 locations. Tom's got a great story to tell us about rapid and ultra-rapid charging, which is, of course, one very important part of the entire ecosystem. And this is a really cool episode, so I hope you enjoy it. Welcome, Tom, to Wicked Problems. It's amazing to have you here with us. Looking forward to hearing all about you and FastNed and what's going on.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Toby. It's a special treat.
I'm interested in FastNed because I used to work in the Netherlands, drive around in EVs a lot, and see your stations all over the place. So that got me interested in the first place. But before we go there, let's start with yourself. Maybe tell us a little bit about your background, how you got involved with FastNed, what led you to where you are now.
So let's say, I'm a mechanical engineer by training. I did my master's in mechanical engineering way back when in 2008 or so. And following university, the first thing I did was got straight into the oil and gas industry, basically following in my father's footsteps, with the honest but highly naive expectation that I could change the system from the inside. It took me about 9 months of drilling oil wells in Saudi Arabia to realize this is a super tanker. You don't shift overnight, and you don't shift it, let's say, from that scale of your career. So very quickly on, I moved and did a master's in sustainable energy. And actually, that was more or less the first time. So this was 2010 or so that I learned about the concept of electric vehicles and their potential. Following that, I went to work for an energy and climate change consultancy, and I spent 6 or 7 years working with local authorities, national governments, multinational companies, dealing with things like energy and climate change, carbon strategy. And I would say I got very frustrated with producing lovely reports and having my clients say, "Thank you very much for this lovely report," and there it goes on the shelf. And any change, any impact from that report is a long time coming, and I'd sort of surrendered my role in it from that point onwards. So I was really looking, around 2017 or so, I was looking at a way to get involved in an industry where I can make a real difference. And so I'd been, keeping an eye on the EV side of things. I'm half Dutch, so I spent quite a bit of time in the Netherlands, and there, just like you, I was driving down the motorway and I saw FastNed's beautiful, yellow solar canopies on the side of the road. And I thought, what is this thing? This definitely looks futuristic. It's not the petrol station. What on earth is going on there? Is it hydrogen? I mean, the Dutch are always, so advanced. And so in due course, I discovered, oh yes, this is EV charging. They're really doing it. They're really committed. And by just an absolute twist of fate, I one day opened my LinkedIn at exactly the right time that there was a job opening for a role in the UK that I saw, sent my covering letter, and then next thing you know, one thing led to another, and I landed in FastNed. So really, my role was growing the business in the UK, along with a few other colleagues. Started in 2017, and it's been an absolute adventure riding this early adopter wave of the infrastructure story here in the UK. So we opened our first station up in the northeast of England, up in Sunderland. We opened that up in 2019, and that was the country's first ultra rapid charging hub. Since then, we've been developing our model, developing our value proposition for the UK market and UK customers. And to date, we've rolled out 30 ultra-rapid charging hubs across the country. With several more sites on the go. But FastNed as a whole is, it's a company that's now operational in 8 countries. We've got over 300 employees. And really, we are 100% focused on ultra-rapid on-the-go charging. Basically, that's the summary.
Yeah, so you're 100% focused on ultra-rapid charging. And I saw you when I was driving around, a lot of motorway exits. I think you kind of go where the high throughput of vehicles is likely to be, which is, that's a strategy that's perfectly, sounds perfectly sensible to me. And one of the things I liked actually about the charging sites in general is they tend to be, a lot of sites aren't friendly to trailers, caravans, that sort of thing. And also that you really thought about disability and safety? Because I've seen a lot of sites where, those things have just been an afterthought. And so it seems like FastNed kind of designed those in from the beginning, which is great because that means you're really thinking about your customer. And as you said, you were, as a company, at the forefront really of this EV revolution. So I'm guessing you've seen all sorts of changes in the industry, changes in the regulatory landscape, different behaviors, different growth paths. What has changed over the time that FastNed has been going, or that you've been involved with them? And how has that impacted the journey for you guys?
The main thing, the first thing to sort of say is that one thing that hasn't changed for us is the focus on the customer. And you identified it there. We really do care about meeting the needs of all EV drivers and meeting all use cases where it concerns the ultra-rapid system, right? So a high volume of traffic, a high throughput of vehicles. We don't care if you drive a truck, a trailer, caravan, or you're dragging a caravan, or if you're just in a regular sort of compact vehicle. The way we work, we're an independent business, and it is so fundamental for us that we are, not erecting any barriers to use, not making it difficult for anybody to use our infrastructure. So that's the sort of guiding light of what we've done. And again, the other part is really just focusing on super fast charging. But where it's changed is, when I started in 2017, 50 kilowatt charging was rapid. This is the fastest technology out there. It was groundbreaking. It was going to explode your car. It was so fast. That was the standard until 2019 when we opened our location up in Sunderland. So we introduced the first public 175 kilowatt chargers, and this being the UK, we had to identify, well, not we, but the industry had to create a new superlative for it. So ultra rapid charging came in, which is awesome. I love bigger words, and I'm surprised we haven't managed to exceed that sort of nomenclature for the latest standards. Because right now, we've been operating 300 kilowatt chargers since the last 2-3 years or so, and indeed, at the very end of 2024, we've been installing 400 kilowatt chargers in the UK. So the charges get quicker. There's more and more that we can deliver into your vehicle, and the vehicles themselves are able to take these faster and faster speeds. So that underpins our business model. That underpins customer expectations as well. It's very much like the sort of the 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G growth that in experience and expectations that we've seen with mobile phones. Once you've experienced Netflix, downloading to your phone instantly, you can't envisage going back to basically a dial-up modem. And it's the same thing with your cars now. Every now and then, particularly in the winter, we get people complaining to us, "Oh, my car's only charging at 50 kilowatts," because it might be any particular vehicle, like let's say a Volkswagen ID4 or a Skoda Enyaq, for example, that doesn't have the heat pump, doesn't have the preconditioning, you name it, all the good reasons for why a car shouldn't be charging quickly. But they're getting 50 kilowatts. This was the absolute top standard just 5 years ago, basically. It's just amazing how that happens, and it's a testament to everyone involved in the industry that these technologies continue to progress, the vehicles, the batteries, the powertrains, all to combine into this growing and improving customer experience that makes it, I guess, crucial for the next phase of adoption.
We would call that being fit for a purpose in the eyes of the customer in our day-to-day work, and therefore I agree with you completely. There are challenges, however, that are outside of your control or outside of anyone's control. Not anyone's, but they're outside of the control of companies like FastNed, for example. I've seen in the past you talked about one of the major ones, which is grid supply. How are you seeing that change? Are you seeing that becoming less and less of a problem, or are you still seeing that as there's work to be done to make that easier to get connected up and to get that supply of energy that you need for a fast charging site?
Like any country that we operate in as FastNed, we generally have two main problems, and they're planning permission and grid connection. And the scale of the problem varies depending on the country and its regulatory sort of permitting system. In the UK, both of those elements certainly can be roadblocks for us. When it comes to grid, we've got a number of sites now that have got planning permission and have dealt with all the grid connection processes, but we know we're waiting until 2029, 2030, even in some cases, before we'll be energized there, before reinforcement works will have taken place. I think that's actually a worst case scenarios, and they're a real pity. They're a challenge for us because we'd love to invest, but without a drop of power, we can't do anything. Generally, where we see room for improvement is in the bureaucracy around grid connections. It can be particularly painful, unnecessarily so, to go through the process of requesting a quotation, requesting a budget, dealing with the legals or the subleases, the lets, the licenses, you name it, to get these connections in place. And that can add months and months to an overall project's time frame. And the real challenge as well is that these processes are not consistent across the different grid operators in the UK. And so, it makes it very hard to program in and to manage investor expectations around when these sites are going to get open, even once they've got planning permission, for example.
So it's not just a question of the government doing something to make it easier, which I'm sure there are things they can do, but it's also the different grid operators and DNOs and so on doing things to make their processes friendlier towards what needs to happen in order to get these sites connected.
Yeah, there's a real differential between the best and the worst grid operators. I'm not going to name names. That's not going to help me at all. But, there are those that are advanced, they're communicative, they have dedicated relationship managers, they think commercially. And as a result, the processes are class leading, and I'm sure they know who they are. Likewise, there are others that one can only assume at this point they exist to make our life difficult. And clearly, we did something to offend them when they were young. It's a real difference. That means that certain areas in the UK are not seeing the uplift in charging provision that I think they should be seeing.
I'll just give my slight view on that. And that when you have these things that are like wading through treacle, it's usually to do with a system of work that has become sort of grown up erratically and not really been designed in a great way. And there's a lot that can be done actually to speed those things up if people want to do it, if they recognize as a problem, but often they won't recognize as a problem or don't recognize as a problem. Looking forward, what do you think is going to happen? We talked a minute ago about, 50 kilowatt chargers, then it was 175. Then 360, there's some 400 kilowatt ones that you guys are putting in. I know that for some of the big freight vehicles, people are starting to put in 1 megawatt chargers. Where do you see it going? And there's only so much a battery can take. And do we really need to go much further? Or actually, can we just make do because that's enough now?
It'll be a balance. So, clearly we're seeing the more advanced vehicles of the market with 800 volt architectures hitting speeds, close to sort of 400 kilowatts at this time. You look at some of the more advanced markets like China, the stuff that's on the road there is next level and blows the sort of European competition out of the water. I definitely agree that ultimately for the sort of on-the-go charging story, there's a limit to how quickly you can go to the toilet after you've driven, 250 miles or so. That will end up being a bigger determination of what the ideal charging time is. So you'll see, yes, high-end vehicles offering higher performance and value add through faster charging. But likewise, the mass market vehicle of tomorrow is going to be stabilizing at, average charge speeds in the range of 150 kilowatts or so, 200 kilowatts. And really, we want to make sure that we're able to, deliver that charging, whatever is demanded by the customer across a range of speeds. But indeed, I think there's some maturation that needs to go on and is indeed going on right now. And then really manufacturers are focusing on driving down the costs. So where a faster speed is associated with, other cost savings, then great. But if it actually holds back the cost decline for a particular vehicle, then depends on the particular area of the market that vehicle is playing in. But it's not going to be picked up, I guess.
You mentioned you can only go to the toilet, you can't speed that up really. And my observation, so I've got an EV, work in the EV industry, have an EV, would seem a bit hypocritical not to. I find that, we stop after a couple of hours driving because that's sensible anyway. But by the time I put the charger on, takes moments. By the time I've been to the loo and probably got a cup of tea, because I want to refreshment and wake myself up a bit, or maybe it's coffee if that's what you like. By the time I've done all of that and got back to the car, there's usually enough charge, more than enough charge in the car to get me to wherever it is I need to go, even if it's not completely full. So I think Sam Clark from GridServe, sorry to mention competitors, but they do exist, was mentioning, came up with the phrase, or alerted me to the phrase of, stop. Charge because you stopped, not stopped to charge, which I suspect is going to gain a lot of traction. I don't have to be stopped for half an hour if I feel I need to be getting going in 10 minutes. 10 minutes might be enough. I'm thinking about in this sector, I mean, I know you focus on the rapid and ultra rapid. So let's think about that. I'm just wondering where you see the opportunities and the challenges in that area for people who new entrants, or in the coming years, or for yourselves, maybe, and only tell me, of course, what you can. But new regulations, people, the ZEV mandate. So how many vehicles are being sold or not sold? The price of used vehicles, the lack of maybe I don't have a driveway, right? So I did some calculations, and despite the fact that I'm mostly charging on the street, it's still coming out cheaper than if I had petrol. But where do you see opportunities for people in this space in the coming few years?
What we're seeing now is the market, notwithstanding a few sort of let's say geopolitical uncertainties of recent weeks, depending on when this particular episode of the podcast goes out. It's we're really entering the proper transition phase of the market. We're at this inflection point between the early adopters and the early mass market. We're at the inflection between sort of expensive, slightly more niche vehicles and mass market affordable vehicles. And we're at the inflection point between, the price parity point between electric vehicles and legacy internal combustion engine vehicles. So there's a whole lot of change coming, and this really manifests itself as a wobble in BEV sales, as these sort of subsidy and policy incentives are decreasing and the more norm-based incentives are taking hold, right? So instead of you getting an electric car because the government's going to give you some money off, or charging is going to be super cheap, or whatever it might be, benefit in kind is nice and affordable, you're doing it because all your neighbors have got cars. You're doing it because an electric car is a car now. That's what your next purchase will be. That transition, that inflection is messy. And we're definitely looking at a couple of years, well, I'd say, let's call it 1 or 2 years of turbulence. And I think that fundamentally, though, creates a huge opportunity for existing players, for new entrants to pitch to this next generation of customer, right? You've got all this legacy early adopter, a sort of market that's been served, that has a number of industry players meeting their needs. And we've got the millions of current and future drivers that will be driving EVs that, frankly, no one actually knows how best to serve them, right? Everyone is making a pitch, everyone is making a play, and sort of setting out their stall as to how they think the needs of this next phase of adoption will be met. But really, anyone who can, hand over heart say this is how it will be, and I'm not biased, by my prior experience in the petrol industry or this industry or that industry is, I think, a little bit, deluded. It's all to play for, and so to that end, businesses that are really able to listen to, but also lead the customer journey, and really tap into the needs and evolving experiences of the customer of the future, they're the ones that will be entering into that real next stage of growth. Likewise, that's going to have to be coupled with efficient infrastructure operation and maintenance, scalability, the ability to grow in line with demand. That's fundamental. But I would absolutely say that there's still, despite, I think there are of the order of 30 or 40 charge point operators in the UK, I still think that there's room for new entrants in different parts of the market, as long as they focus on the needs of the customer and really address that niche with deep knowledge and a high quality, value proposition.
When you look at the way the market's evolving and the journey that FastNed's on, do you see a big role for technology here? And how are you leveraging technology? And I think, and I try not to ask you too many questions in one question, right? So I'm going to just ask one more. And that is, obviously, the hot word in everybody's vocabulary at the moment is AI. And I wonder if you see any place for AI in that space.
So on our side, we've really worked hard over the years to take in-house the elements of the full service stack to that really make a difference to customer experience and the customer journey and the utilization of our locations. So we have in-house architecture and design teams, construction management teams. Our network operations and field operations teams are in-house. We develop our own software in-house for the app that we use and the back end for our charging system. And all of this enables us to really, grow, to learn from the experience and add value and improve our services at all elements of the customer journey. So, things like auto charge back in 2017, we were able to do that. So we saw, how easy it was to charge a Tesla vehicle at the time. Plug it in and charging starts instantly and it's all good. Back in the day, it was, charging sessions were initiated by RFID cards, payment terminals in some cases, but nothing so simple as, plugging in your car and forgetting about it. So back then, we worked with ABB to posit that it should be really quite simple to do this for a charger on a non-Tesla car. And lo and behold, we've been operating this since 2017, and it's a shock for new drivers that come to the FastNed experience and use our app and realize, oh wait, I could just plug in and I'll receive a bill at the end of the month, and within a few seconds I'm charging. Those kinds of interventions are possible because we control so much of our value chain. Sort of coming onto your AI point, what we've been doing since all this time, since creating our own backend, all that infrastructure, is we've been collecting masses of data. And it's not just sat there. It's actually, it's being generated in real time across the charges, across station infrastructure like CCTV, the solar panels that we have on our stations. We've got customer support tickets, you name it. We've got a wide range of data sources that feed into our data lakehouse. And before AI was cool, we were doing big data and we were doing machine learning. Now that's already yielding results, right? Because we can identify, based on past experience, when a given type of charger or a given component of a charger is likely to fail, and dispatch our engineers before it does fail, such that we're maintaining the uptime that we're recognized for in the industry. So it's fundamental. The newer generation of AI, personally, I'm a little bit cautious of, should we say? But we are indeed, rolling it out behind the scenes. We're testing use cases. We're testing protocols and, rules of engagement to make sure that our interests are protected. The user journey is not impacted. It's really a question. So there'll be some improvements behind the scenes in the way we operate. Anything that goes in front of the customer, I'm very sure that on our side, it's only going to be stuff where it's tangibly improving the experience for the end user. That's the guiding light for everything we do, right? We actually have hats in our office that are the EV driver. And if you want to make a decision, when you have to compare two options or a path of action, you put on the hat, which is the EV customer hat, and say, what would I want? And that's really, how we do what we do.
I think that's a really good lens actually to adopt, where you try and feel, what is it that if I was the driver, what would I really, really, really want? And it's probably, not going to be some of the things that you would think about if you put the hat on of, say, somebody who is deeply ensconced in marketing, with apologies to marketeers out there, in a slightly different field. So I'm thinking maybe wet fuel, or it's not to say that they're doing a bad job or that they're wrong. It's just that if you put that hat on, you've got a driver who's coming in who's got a very different experience because they're in the shop for a very small amount of time. And so maybe they just want a coffee. But, if you've got an EV hat on, actually there's maybe a driver hat on, there's maybe other things that you want. So I think it's really important that you do that. And I really liked one of the things you said there, which is you are feeding the data from the customer tickets in, because I think you'll find a lot of the gold that you're looking for, if you will, because that's at the sharp end of where your customer experience is.
Absolutely.
So you'll really get a lot out of that, which I think is great.
The nice thing as well is it's a European network. So a learning from Switzerland can be implemented into our system, our protocols in the UK, and vice versa. It's a really powerful tool.
That is powerful. I wonder if there's different behaviours that you notice between people in different countries, because France is much, much bigger, for example, than the Netherlands. If you drive for more than an hour and a half in the Netherlands, you've probably left the country. If you drive for an hour and a half in France, you're probably not even a third of the way through it.
No, absolutely.
So I wonder if that maybe you get different insights because of things like that from the data that you get as well.
We also, the interesting thing as well is we learn a lot about particularly, the Netherlands is our biggest market. So we've got a big base of customers there. We see them, go on their Christmas and their skiing holidays, for example, out through, they emanate from the Netherlands and they come into the UK. They come onto the French toll roads, out to the ski resorts, and it's a unique perspective.
One of the things we like to examine on this show is the myths that people come up with around EV. And I wondered if you had any that you sort of encounter on a frequent basis, how you counter them, any EV myths that you can help us extinguish?
Yeah, I mean, the one that I would say still makes my blood boil, causes a bit of a visceral reaction, is the statement that no one's buying EVs because there's not enough charging. I mean, that particular statement is wrong on every level, as far as I'm concerned, because, we're now the biggest EV market in Europe. You can say what you want about the ZEV mandate, but there's a lot of EVs being sold here, and they're great and they're awesome. And those people that have bought them, they're willing to put up with the state of the infrastructure. But when it comes to the state of the infrastructure itself, we've got 75,000 public EV chargers across the country. Speaking as someone that has been driving an EV now since 2019, I don't think about where I'm going to charge anymore. It's I drive all around the country. We'll be in Northern Ireland in February. I just don't worry about it. The real issue, though, that we have is, despite there being all these charges, for the most part, whether they're on street or on the motorway services, for example, they're still not as visible as they could be. And then part of that really comes down to actually signage, which is not a sexy topic, but a really impactful sort of intervention, which is that for all those people not driving EVs right now, if they don't see this drawn to their attention, the myth that there isn't enough charging takes hold. It chimes with their lived experience, and then that the myth becomes fact. So I would love to see better motorway signage advertising the presence of EV chargers, the number of chargers, for example. Can be generic stuff, doesn't need to be branded. Likewise, on our dual carriageways in our urban environments, where is the nearest hub? Here's a hub, but also. For all this on-street charging infrastructure, it's still really, really important that, yes, you're balancing, let's say, the concerns around street clutter with the need for this to be visible. Like if all this lovely lamppost charging is completely invisible, for all you've got 6 charging positions on your street. But if you're not really versed in EV, let's say hardware or infrastructure, you might still be of the opinion that you can't practically have an EV. So drawing attention to this is crucial. So for us on our side, anyway, this is why we invest over and above in the visibility of our infrastructure. So we've got the timber framed solar canopies, we've got the yellow trim, the wings that we have at our other locations. It's important for us to give us an integrated brand that we've got across the app, our marketing, and our on location experience. But it's also important from a safety perspective. Where the chargers are on the given location. You don't have to sort of hunt around a busy car park to find where the chargers are. You go straight there at a measured speed, and you don't risk colliding with someone or whatever it might be while you chase another EV driver to get the last few spots. So yeah, in summary, there is enough charging infrastructure for the cars that are on the road today. I will say that there's not enough for when there's an additional 50 million EVs on the road, but that's what people like FastNed and others in the industry are engaged in delivering at a constant pace, right? So we are rolling out at pace. Everyone's pulling out all the stops to install the on the street, the destination, the urban hubs, the on the go, on route charging, all pieces of the infrastructure landscape. We are continuing to stay ahead of demand, and to that end, it's probably worth noting as well, we really do value the continued signals from government that this is the direction for EV charging and EV sales. Measures like the ZEV mandate, we value them for their clarity on our side, and to enable us to make those investment decisions ahead of demand and stay ahead of that.
On that, just very quickly, you're so right, but also we don't need to have the infrastructure for the final destination in place before you embark on the journey, right? You need to grow that infrastructure as the journey itself progresses. So we don't need to be able to support 50 million cars. We just need to be able to support the number that are there at this moment in time and have the headroom to grow it. I think the visibility and safety piece that you mentioned, very, very important. I've been to so many places where you had to hunt round it was round the back, it was dimly lit, The charger screen was low down to the floor, so you couldn't really see it. And worse, the cable was so short you had to mount almost onto the charger, and often the charger got knocked, and then that took it out of service. So really important points that you've raised there. I've really enjoyed our time talking together. This always goes too quickly, always, because there's always more we could talk about, and I feel like the flow is going well. If people want to know more about the work that FastNed do, fastned.co.uk. And any other places they can get more information about the sort of stuff that you guys do?
Yeah, if you want to find out about things we're doing, like the joint venture with Places for London in London, you can definitely look at our main European website, which is fastnedcharging.com. You can check out our LinkedIn pages, and I'm sure we'll be at various conferences in the coming weeks and months.
Okay, so look, what we'll do is we'll put the links that you mentioned, all of those, we'll put them as show notes on the main website for this show, which is wickedproblems.fm. So anybody who's watching it there can link through from there to have a look at those things. Tom, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I've really enjoyed our chat. Best of luck for you and FastNed into the future.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully we'll get to talk again at some point.